Okay, why don't we get started?
Go.
All right. Um, it's great to see everybody. We had a great uh, agenda for you all tonight. It was packed as usual, all sorts of subjects. And then Perseda emailed uh, that the Climate Action Committee has unexpected meeting tonight. So she couldn't make it, and she was one of our keystone speakers. So, oh, Alan, aren't you at that meeting?
You're on mute, Alan. You're on mute.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, the meeting just got canceled. So
Oh,
she might be back.
so Persetta might show up. You never know.
you never know. She also had another meeting.
Oh.
Uh,
Look,
Well-
well, picture popping in and out.
Because it's weird that way with backgrounds.
so I thought we'd use it as an opportunity. Part of it was Ivan last week emailed me some questions about planting, gardening questions. And that was sort of a catalyst for our organizing meeting on Monday. I'm not sure if you noticed, those of you who've been in our past episodes, that we haven't really talked about things like planting tomatoes and things like that.
I'm
We've
gonna
been
take this away.
mostly focusing sort of on the bigger picture, on learning about how nature functions, the different parts of nature's functioning, how dynamic things are, learning how to observe, learning how to learn. And some of us have more experience in certain parts of the different parts of the ecosystem, and we've been learning from each other about that and how that affects us. And yeah, it's learning about relationships with nature, how nature affects us, and about how much we really don't know. And so talking about the questions that Frank wanted to discuss, we felt like there are a lot of classes out there about things like that. And maybe our role is to create guidelines from learning about how nature works and then using that as the guidelines to what and how we plant. And then when Preseda postponed or canceled her part of the talk, it sort of was a catalyst for me to realize how much when we collaborate to put something on like this, and how everybody comes together in the organizing committee, and we have all these different ideas and different backgrounds, and how we all sort of fit together. And part of the outcome is an episode. And part of it is determined by the time of the year and what's happening in Linda's yard at this time of the year, and things like that. But it sort of mirrors what is going on in nature that there's so many different moving parts. You know, there's the amount of sunlight, and there's the temperature, and there's the water, and how what's going on in the soil, and all the different components of the soil, and all of that, and how they all dance around each other, and they all fit together, and how they feed each other. There's no waste. It's just all part of the system that creates life. And it's all part of the system that sustains us. And that even though our effect on it, especially here in the suburbs, we keep taking parts of it away. It's like it just, you know, there are less insects, there's less birds, there's more invasive, and whatever's left, it keeps adapting and keeps filling in the holes, and it's constant communication, constant adaptation. And that's what we are doing as a committee too. It's like, oh, Preseda's not coming, so that part of the presentation isn't going to happen, and so we'll just shift and adjust, and whoever is in the room, including all of you, we'll just create a slightly different episode. So I hope to continue this part of the discussion later in the Q&A. We'll still have the other parts that we have scheduled, but in order to keep Ivan happy, we'll discuss what we can do about the part where we will, at some point, whether it's not on our monthly thing, maybe we'll set something up in between to talk about how to put into practice when you're actually doing the plantings and the design for planting. So why don't we get started with what we have scheduled. Our last episode, it was heavily on the invasives in Linda's yard, and taking that out. At that point, we were just talking about it and planning it, and it was the day after the episode that the actual removal of the invasives in her yard was going to happen. So Shukong is going to start us off with what happened in that yard since then. Shu, you want to start?
Sure. I think, Fred, you asked me to give us a brief description of the camera setup. And it's a tiny little, wide angle, 160 degrees, 5 megapixel. So it's just enough to do HD, fisheye type of lens. I attached it to a Raspberry Pi. That's a W for wireless. And it takes a snapshot every 10 minutes, but then it also captures motion when a certain threshold of number of pixels change in the past second. So for that day, the captured stills and video starts with the first truck to the departure of the last load. And it's compressed to 5.5 minutes total. And it is on the Grow Local playlist. So here we go. Hold on, let me see if I can find this again. Share sound there. And this is from dawn. This is just when the sun's coming up. The truck just arrived in the right side. Everybody's busy. They're cutting along the far fence. I think there were 2 truckloads, weren't there, Linda? Maybe 1.
You're muted, Linda.
You can see the piles and piles of stuff from the far fence. Just cutting and digging and piling.
Love the music.
What's that?
I love the music.
Was it 1 truck or two truckloads that went away?
Red truck right up front gets totally full, and I don't know that there was a second one, but it gets full.
Where do they take the brush?
I don't know. So eventually they work around to the trees on the left edge, and we'll see people on ladders. About a third of the way through the day. They leave at 5:40 p.m. The last truck leaves then. But there's a lot of work to be done before then. So that whole back fence was completely, grown in. And now it's that back fence is now clear. UPS truck comes and FedEx truck comes. I think that must be lunch, right?
It was amazing as they were pulling the vines out of those trees in the back left. It was almost as if they were a lasso, and they would pull, and practically tied it to them to put body weight in. Impressive.
Yeah, here they go. So ladders are up, trying to cut away the, what was it, the bittersweet up there?
Bittersweet, yeah. And it had killed one of the trees in the middle of the whole yard. There had been a big tree, and the bittersweet just killed the whole thing.
So the trucks come in and they start loading. And what they'll do is they'll use a chainsaw. And they'll cut down into the pile to collapse
Oh, that's cool.
and load it up, use the chainsaw to cut it in. There's a lot of stuff left in the yard. They'll keep dragging it over and putting it in the truck.
I love the chainsaw in the truck.
Yeah, so they're putting it into the pile so the
Amazing.
pieces collapse together. Back in again.
This is
I don't know why they didn't
Dan in
do it with
disguise,
chicken.
clearing this whole yard. It's cool though. I mean, if you saw it
That's
from the
great too.
probably mute myself.
So it's a little bit dark, but I think they're still dragging stuff in from the left. As they cleared the right edge fence as well. A lot of removing and chopping. Well, it looks like there's only one big truckload. But,
Massive.
yep, they're strapping it down, covering it, and off they go.
Bravo.
So if anybody wants a camera in their yard, come talk to me. We'll get something set up.
Shukong, is that a frame every 10 minutes or a frame every 10 seconds?
Oh, no. It was a frame every 10 minutes, but it also captured some video in between. So when this camera is set to capture a little bit of video depending on the trigger point, which is about 30,000 pixels changing within the past second, and it'll record until there's no more change.
Okay.
So the entire thing was, including the video clips and the stills, were, I don't know, 5.5 hours. And I compressed it to 5.5 minutes.
All right.
Great.
Without editing. There was no editing.
Very little. I just stacked it end to end and just squeezed and squeezed.
Is there a before and after photo?
Exactly. Is there a before and after?
I was
Well-
gonna ask the same thing. Love to see one.
The after is what's still there now, except the only difference is that we've ground up a stump. But I do think that there are photos. We don't have it formally that way right now, but yeah, there are.
I mean, I think in episode Linda's Yard series, episode 1 has pictures of the yard,
Yeah.
video of it, so you can see it.
Okay. Well,
Nice done.
that was very Chaplin-esque. Carol, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, so Carol's going to do a PowerPoint on the symbiotic relationship between plants and soil.
Okay, just one moment. So yes, as Fred mentioned, I will be doing the essential symbiotic relationship of plants and soil for Grow Local for the Planet. And a reminder of today being Earth Day, and they have a wonderful theme of Restore Our Earth, which ties right into healthy soils and regenerative agriculture. And fortunately, United Nations has declared this the decade of ecosystem restoration. And as you can see, the real key to healthy soils is whether or not there's plants. There was all this misinformation out there that you should leave your ground fallow so it could so-called recover, but you need to have the plants photosynthesizing in order for it to then feed the soil. So, and a couple of key things are, for years, conventional agriculture was getting into planting annual, so you would have to dig up every year. But they're getting back to realizing that perennials are extremely important, much deeper roots, and the deep roots are much more effective at feeding the soil. And I love this phrase where nature doesn't contribute to well-being, it is actually the life support system of the planet and provides incredible ecosystem services. Now today, as some of you know, I've been taking courses from Kiss the Ground. I'm probably like on my 6th one. I'm taking a land and management course from Dee Pierce house. And today, this is what they posted. And I'm so glad because they're really starting to emphasize the huge importance of biodiversity. And you can see just how powerful this is compared to how scary. And basically what they're saying is, for a while, we were literally treating this soil as we converted it to dirt, and it was a medium for all the chemicals. And we had the conventional ones had to pour too much chemicals and became addicted. So fortunately, huge appreciation, and many companies are, PepsiCo even signed up to convert some of their acres to regenerative agriculture. Now, of course, I highly emphasize to support the local farms, but at least the big ones are going to reduce their chemicals. And one of the key people is Dr. Christine Jones. And for the technical terms of quorum sensing in regards to how the plants and the soil works together, but how that translates is its living plants support the microbes that create well-structured friable topsoil with high nutrient status and high water holding capacity. And that's one of the really huge things that they're realizing is the government could save a lot of money with not having as many of the wildfires and as many of the droughts and the extreme weathers. And the other real key thing is they thought that plants were competing with each other. And what actually happens is they're calling the big exchange. Roots don't just take, they give. And a number of the phrases you'll hear is there's plant exudates. The photosynthesis will allow for the nutrients to go out and feed the microbial, and then they'll turn around, as these arrows are saying, and then the roots will take back what they need to go back to feed the plants. And as mentioned before, the rhizosphere is the plant's gut. It contains huge numbers of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and viruses and other microscopic creatures. And the key thing is, as we've learned with probiotics, is it's bacteria that actually eats our food. And we need there's good bacteria and there's good viruses. There's good and bad viruses. And when we're in balance, they really think that we can reduce the number of pandemics that we have. And here's another real key concept, is that the trees use these underground fungi networks to exchange nutrients, and there's chemical signaling that goes on to help them become much more resilient. In fact, there's studies that have been shown that in areas where there's hurricanes, you'll literally see the plants still standing if it's a regenerative, healthy soil, because the whole system works to be much more resilient. And then the conventional farm, the plants have fallen over. Another key part that you'll hear is the mycorrhizal. And the mycorrhizal is an incredible, the technical explanation is high-file mycelium network increases active root system and nutrient acquisitions up to 700 times. Well, it basically is a symbiotic fungi symbiotic fungi work with roots to support plant health and build soil fertility. And here's Dr. Christine Jones again, where she basically said a big mistake we've been making is we bring it into a lab and we take out everything. We bring it down to a medium instead of going and studying the really healthy soil. So that's what her and a whole slew of other people have been doing. And they're learning incredible, wonderful things that mycorrhizal plant photosynthesizes much faster than a non-mycorrhizal plant of the same exact species growing right next to it, despite, and this is my favorite, giving away half the sugars that they make. Well, it's because they make so much more sugars and they know that they're going to get back a lot more of the nutrients, and then they're going to be able to actually go to the rocks and extract more of the minerals, because that's a huge thing that's been happening to us, is that we're drastic reduction of the nutrients. And this is one of my favorite posters that I've used for, because I've helped with collecting compost. And this is for the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, which again, even though it's awesome that the large companies are switching over to appreciate nature, and that which means they're going to stop applying so much chemical, and they're also going to be helping to build back biodiversity. It's the local food system. So please support your local food system. In fact, definitely the farmers market definitely has access to incredible local systems. And as you can see with this poster, a key thing it does is the healthy soils, it enhances plant disease suppression. That's an incredible symbiosis, and protects against soil desertification and soil erosion, and the incredible filtering that happens. And here's the bottom half of the poster. And Rodale finished a study that really emphasized, they said they underestimated, this is just in the fall, how much that compost and plants like the legumes that provide natural nitrogen, how it's able to much easier convert the nitrogen into a more stable and less mobile form, and the phosphorus into a less soluble form. Because there's been incredible runoff over the years with the conventional that ends up polluting the lakes. It's the biodiversity and the dosage. It's not that nitrogen and phosphorus are bad in and of itself. It's just when things are just overloaded. And again, all these different, reduces the need for chemicals. That's my favorite. And that's the, insects. We got to bring back the insects. They really help. And there's predators and beneficial insects. Ray Archuleta is one of the key people that has really helped to influence and convince the large companies, because he came from the conventional background. He actually worked for the government, and he actually said that I took the courses and all the convention, a lot of the universities, they're finally switching over and realizing and appreciating the healthy soils. But they basically said, they left the land fallow, and the soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever. So he's really helping to teach healthy soil principles. And again, this is General Mills, and it's just incredible where they're no longer going to be competing with nature. They're going to be partnering with nature. And I included good old Bernie, because he helped to make sure that Vilsack, our new agriculture secretary, won't have the focus he did in the last time he was in with the conventional and the larger ag. And I actually participated in a town hall about a week ago, and he really, that the amount of times that he mentioned regenerative agriculture and healthy soils, and the key thing is there's a lot of land taken away over the years from the indigenous and the Black community. And he really, because of the political community is definitely supporting that. So it totally ties into bringing the land back to the small farm holders. And again, General Mills, this is incredible. The key thing that Kiss the Ground started emphasizing, because they didn't realize they needed to emphasize it because they thought it was a given, is you need to understand the context of your landscape, of your farm operation, because and you use these principles, but it really depends on where you are. And another thing you might hear is a push to just stop eating so much meat because meat is bad. Well, regenerative agrees totally. It's not the cow, it's the how. They totally agree. The CAFOs, the concentrated feedlot, it's awful. But when they're raised on biodiverse pastures, it's wonderful. In fact, Lilac Hedge Farms, they actually go through a processing plant that uses the Temple Grandin system, which is an incredibly appreciative of the animals and treats them as well as possible. And the key thing, no matter what the health of the animal is affected by the stress. So Temple Grandin system helps to reduce the stress, and the regenerative farmers really truly love their animals. So it just really helps with the whole system. And even enough, there's groups of vegans and vegetarians that they're like, I know some family and friends that'll never switch off of meat. So the best I can do is to at least have the animals treated well. And again, with the soil and when you have plants on the soil, sure, there's still going to be some carbon that's going to be emitted, but the key thing is the cycle. You bring carbon's not the enemy. You'll bring the carbon back down into the soil for the plants to, and the whole system and the microbes to actually use. And so basically remember that microbes rule this world. Healthy soil, microbiome equals healthy plants and animals, healthy human, healthy planet. So happy Earth Day. Restore our Earth.
Thanks, Carol. So if you have any questions for Carol, put them in the chat or bring them up at the end during the Q&A. Now, also in honor of Earth Day, Margo and Demetra did a demonstration on the proper way of planting trees. Why don't we get that rolling, Margo?
And I'm going to plant
What?
a native.
Hey, I wasn't ready. Right.
And I'm going to plant a native plant. It's a dogwood, an American dogwood, and it's called Appalachian Snow. And it's a sort of a new variety that they figured out is really healthy and is not going to fall victim to some of the disease that our American dogwoods have. And if you can see this container, it's basically a bucket. And you'll see a lot of people dig a hole exactly the shape of the bucket. That is the first mistake you could make. You need to make a bowl, not a straight down hole. Interesting fact, most trees die within 7 years after you bring them home from the nursery. So it's right to get it right when you plant a tree. So I dug a hole that's a bowl. It's much wider and it's scooped down. Then the next thing is you want to make sure that the hole is not too deep. There's a saying that says, plant a tree low and it won't grow, plant a tree high and it will reach the sky or something. So if I just took the tree out of the bucket, I've cut it from the back with a nice sharp knife. So the tree came up to here in the bucket. If we put it in to the hole, we notice that it's just about right. So you have to add good soil and mix it with the old soil. So what I'm doing here, this nice black stuff, compost, and I'm just going to add a bunch, and then I'm going to just kind of mush it around. If you say it in Spanish, it's mezclar la tierra, por favor. That's the only Spanish I know, but I do like that expression. I added maybe an inch. Can you see these roots? See how they've gone around and around? If I just put this in the hole, the roots are never going to venture out. So you have to encourage these roots, and I do it just, believe it or not, this is being gentle. Doing that. And you just come down with a rake and you kind of tease the roots away from the sides. And I'm going to do that probably 4 or 5 different cuts around the edge. But now the problem is the flare. This tree has a wiggle here because it's probably grafted, it's how they're growing things. That's fine. But the flare, which is when the tree goes out, you know when a kid draws a tree, they draw it like that? If you go to any parking lot right now, Market Basket or a movie theater, I bet you will not be able to see a single flare of a tree that's been planted in a corporate situation because it's planted too deeply and then they do that horrible volcano mulch thing. So if you see a tree like this without a flare, it's already too deep. So now what I do is I take the top and I somewhat gently move the mulch and the top. There's fertilizer and whatever else is on here. And I very gently dig until I can find the flare, which I just did. So I don't know if you can see that. It's a small tree. So the flare isn't, you know, huge. But that's the top of the tree right there. The most important thing is you don't bury that under soil. You don't bury it under mulch. It's got to be at the top. So I've put this in, and now I'm going to just take some flat surface-ish, okay? This is the top of the dirt, but this doesn't take into account mulch. It's too low. So this tells me I need to put more compost under. You start mixing the old soil with the new. And of course you want to spend a minute, make sure your tree is straight. So now basically I'm filling the hole, and the reason to add compost and the old soil is that if you add just compost, the roots will go out into the compost, but then they'll reach the wall of the container that you essentially made out of the old soil, and they won't go further. So that's another sort of trick and really important reason to add old soil with new compost. And while I'm adding compost, I'm going to talk about it. Don't bother with peat moss. You don't need any of it. All you need is compost. When you've got the hole, you know, half full, it's time to water. Basically, you put it on a trickle, you leave it, you let this fill up. And then you turn it off and you let it go down. If for some reason the water doesn't drain, pretty much plant it in clay, which is another reason why you have to add compost, because it really makes the earth more like a sponge. Now, if this was a B&B, I would turn the water on full pressure and I'd be washing the clay away from the stem of the plant, but it's not. And remember, we found the flare. You can really see it. Anyway, so you leave the water again until the water fills up, then you let it drain, and then we're going to fill the hole back up again. It's time to fill the hole up now. And as I go, I'm going to straighten the tree. And when you straighten the tree, it's important to look at it from a couple of different angles. So I just continue throwing the old soil and the compost. Every now and then it's going to shift and you want to just check it. I have a nice bucket of compost here. You just want to punch the soil down with your hand. There might still be water there, so it's a process. And I'm pretty much following the outline of the, you know, of the root ball. You don't have to stomp up here. This is the plant, but this is where the hole is. So then you go around. And now I just found a big pocket and I shifted the tree. So now I have to make sure the tree is straight. Because if you don't do it now, you're going to regret it when it's too late and you can't move it. I'm going to wait, let the water seep down a little bit more. I'm going to come back and check this probably in an hour. And then I'm going to compost it. I'm going to mulch it. It's pretty upright, like, like a pretty vase of flowers. It'll grow up, and then as it gets older, it'll grow out. Of course, this will get wider, but it's a single stem tree. It's not a shrub form. It will make white flowers in the spring that are beautiful, and then little red berries in the fall that are lovely, but they won't last very long because birds and squirrels will eat them. Okay, so a couple of things to consider when you are purchasing a tree and then when you're figuring out where to put it. If you don't have a design and you're, sort of looking for a place, just remember that a tree, this little sweet tree, is going to end up being 20 feet tall with a 15 to 20 foot spread up in the sky. So if I put this tree next to my front door, it would look so cute right now. And then it would be a nightmare. And by the time it became a nightmare, I wouldn't be able to move it. So I would have to cut it or prune it so that it becomes completely misshapen. So remember that the whole beauty of being a gardener is you get the instant gratification of planting something, and then you get the long gratification of watching it grow, as long as it's in the right place. And then the second thing, when you're looking for a tree, you want to look for its health. You want to make sure that there aren't any scars on the skin of the tree, on the wood. You want to make sure that there aren't sort of a lot of tangled branches on the inside. If there are and you can prune them, that's great. But if it's misshapen on the inside, it's going to be misshapen forever. You want to look for a strong leader if it's a single stem tree, meaning it's standing up nice and straight. And then you want to just make sure that there's lots of green, that it's not dead. And I don't mean the color green, I mean the feel of if there's life, and there is in this. If you look closely, you can see lots of little buds, the next leaves, and you can even see the flowers on this. So that's what you're looking for. And then just remember, place it carefully, put it down, walk away, look around, spend the night, come and look at it the next day, really think it through before you do the hard work of putting it in the ground. And then you have a tree that you get to enjoy for hopefully the rest of your life. Okay, thank you. Happy spring.
I don't know if Demetra, is she still here? Is she? No.
I'm here. Hi.
You should say something.
Margo, that was great. But I was like,
We condensed it to 10 minutes.
I know I talk a lot. Talk.
You guys did a great job. It was really well done. Thank you.
Yeah, Margo's good.
Yeah.
Whoever wants something filmed, these two on our team are incredible.
So how long did it take you to actually plant the tree?
Margo, what, like an hour?
No, yeah.
Doesn't take that long.
She had already dug the hole.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
Well, that explains it.
Yeah.
How is the tree doing?
What?
How is the tree doing?
It's really good. I look at it every day. It's adorable, but it's really small. So when you I really, really encourage you to take it seriously, like to find the flare, and you'll start noticing, if you haven't already, every time you pass a tree, like at a parking lot, and you see that volcano thing, it's awful. So it really kills trees. So just go look in your own property and make sure that's not happening on your own property.
Okay, so we would have followed up this segment with Praseda's thing on the ecosystem of a tree and different wildlife at different elevations of it, but maybe another time. So the last segment of our presentation tonight is on raised beds partly because that's what we're going to have in Linda's yard for her vegetables, and partly because several of you had asked about them. So we're going to, where is it? Okay,
You have it?
it's somewhere.
I have it.
No, there's other parts to it. Where to go? Here we go. So all kinds of raised beds. Or you can go on the online, you can Google it, and you can find ground level, wood, masonry, steel. This one is in my backyard. At ground level, they're about 5-6 feet wide, about 22 to 25 feet long, with drip hoses and the PVC is set up for row covering. But Linda wanted something different. She wanted let's see if we can get rid of this. Hey, Margo. Oh, wait.
You got it?
Here we go.
There you go.
So Linda wanted something off the ground in her driveway. This is the cut diagram, all the different pieces. She wanted 5 of them. And we used spruce 2x lumber.
Where's our nice music?
So Fred, did you make this or who made it? Who's doing the building
Oh,
here?
that's me.
Oh, okay. And Margo, are you filming?
And I'm helping by watching. Well, I'm helping a little more than watching.
So how much soil do you need, will it hold at the end of the day?
So you need at least 8 inches to grow the vegetables. And so this is about 11 inches deep. And so, and they're 4 feet by 6 feet. And so they're going to hold, you know, that's like, it's almost 24 square, or 24 cubic feet of soil. So you need to make it a little structurally sound. The thing is that you can make it all out of all different kinds of wood. You can spend a little more money and make it out of cedar. Because there was 5 of these, it would have been pretty expensive. Spruce is fine. The main thing is that you want to make sure that the water drains. It's not holding the water. It's when the water is stagnant, there's no place for it to drain, whether it's sitting directly on the asphalt or it's sitting directly on ledge or clay soil. Then the water will stay around and then it'll start to rot the wood. But if the water drains, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Fred,
Yep.
do you use a special type of wood for?
Yeah, these are spruce 2x4, 2x12s and 2x8s, and fir 4x4 legs.
So it looks like Linda, you can stand up with that one, right? So it's easier on your back, or what was your reason on choosing that size?
I'm planning to get old.
Yeah, okay.
And as I do that, I won't have to bend over.
Yep.
The other thought was that the ones on the inside of the fence will change, but those will not have the legs, but they'll be able to have a much deeper soil bed. And we opted not to go with a deeper soil bed on the driveway side so that it could be moved, you know, just for convenience if there were a reason. They'll be incredibly heavy once the whole deep one is filled. But also when you guys come over, if you want to come and plant some things or come and eat some things, everybody else doesn't have to bend down.
Yeah, so that the height is 36 inches, which is kitchen counter height. So it's very comfortable to use. And the depth, the bottom of Linda's raised bed structure, it would be like reaching to the bottom of the kitchen sink.
Mhm.
You must have had in mind specific things you wanted to plant, right? Because I think 8 inches doesn't give you the ability to grow potatoes, for example. Is that correct?
A couple of things. The inside, the beds that are on the other side of the fence, where there will be 2 more, will be, you know, 36 inches deep. So deeper things can go on one side, and I think we'll be able to get 11 inches deep of soil on the ones we're seeing now, minimum 8. But you make a good point, yeah.
So the thing about raised beds, especially the ones that were up on the stilts like that, is that it loses its nutrients really quickly. Because it drains out, and those boards on the floor of the bed will shrink, so there'll be a little more of a gap between them. What we didn't have at the time was we'll probably put a weed barrier or a row cover at the bottom of it, so when you water, the water will drain out, but the soil can stay in the bed. But it's important to do soil tests still. And it's important to add the amendments to replenish, along with compost, to replenish the nutrients in the soil, and it's important to add the micro fungi to keep the biology in the soil. And because there's only about 12 inches of soil, you have to do this every year. Now there is another system. It's called hugelkultur, and it's old world German, and the indigenous cultures here have a form of this too. They use logs to bury in the about the bottom half of the bed, and long term, the logs and other green stuff, twigs, grass, other forms of compost. It's like building a garden on top of your compost. And this is the idea of it is a traditional hugelkultur bed that isn't surrounded by your man-made walls, and it's a mound shape because of all the different layers, and it gives you more square footage of growing surfaces because it's a mound shape. And because of all the organic material that's composting over time, it keeps adding to the nutrient ingredients in the soil. And this is a way of starting it by putting the logs below the surface of the surface level. And this is one way of one view of these. Now, because we're going to do this in those structures that we're going to build for Linda, and because over time, it won't happen right away. The logs take, the bigger the logs, the longer it's going to take for it to start decomposing. But once it starts decomposing, the older logs will be able to retain more moisture in the soil. And since we're doing this because Linda has a lot of logs left over, we're going to use those in the two raised beds. And since they're going to retain moisture, I don't know if you noticed that the actual bed that I created had the joint between the two pieces of 2x to seal the side cracks. The design element for the hugelkultur raised beds will be slightly different. There'll be more of a gap between the two or three 2x to allow the more moisture to escape, so it won't speed up the rot of the frame. Unless you have any questions, that was it for this segment.
I think Margo had a question about Linda's raised bed. You mentioned that water drains, but like, where does it drain?
Well, so first of all, when you water it yourself, hopefully you're just watering enough for the beds, that you're not overwatering it. Because if you're overwatering it, then it'll just drain down through the bottom and down to the storm system, because they'll just run off the driveway. But the ones in Linda's yard, the two hugelkultur raised beds, they'll just drain into the soil below. Now, if you were building raised beds on more urban soils, which would most likely have lead in it, then you'd try to put a barrier between the existing soil and the soil that you would add. So the soil that of the raised bed wouldn't get contaminated.
What is the origin of the word Hugelkultur?
Anybody German?
Oh, it's fantastic because that's exactly what I did. I put logs, and as I mentioned in the chat, I can now brag and pretend I know where it originated.
You're too hip for us, Ivan.
Gardner Scott, if you ever YouTube, he was the one that recommended it.
Okay, so
Well, I had one question, Fred. Since
What's
you
that?
have so many raised beds, do you want help with that at all? Building them?
sure. Anybody else want to? I've cut most of the pieces. We still have four of them to build. It's just fitting the puzzles together.
I got reggae music, I got snacks, we've got extra drills.
Sounds good. Just tell us.
Pick a time.
So I was interested in your raised bed, Fred. I noticed that you had some sort of a covering over your raised beds. Is that to protect the raised beds?
They're for covering for temperature.
For temperature. Okay, it wasn't to protect it from animals or anything of the sort.
It can be multi-purpose. It can protect it from critters. It can protect it from bugs. But usually, if you plant your tomatoes or whatever, and you plant it like end of May, beginning of June, and then you hit a cold spell, you could put the row cover over it.
That's fantastic. And you built that?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Wow, nice.
So this is the part we open up for discussion. If any questions about anything that we've presented, or questions about anything else, or we can also have a discussion on where do we go from here, because we feel like we still want to use this once a month format to talk about these relational with nature topics, and because there's so much to talk about. But I know that a lot of you want to actually start working on your gardens and talk about that. And so some of us, including maybe Demetra and myself, would be willing to have another night where we can schedule, and whoever wants to come, we can have that kind of a discussion and use the guidelines that we're working on, that we're learning about on these evenings, to guide us on how do we design and plant our vegetable and perennial gardens.
That sounds good, Fred. I'm doing a native garden both front and back of my house right now. So I'm like halfway through and getting ready for the installation, probably like in mid-May. So taking me a number of years to get here, but I finally had the inspiration to get it done this year. So I'm doing an In the back, it's a shade native garden. And in the front, it'll be more like a meadow in a certain area, the front of the house, more of a wildflowers.
All
Oh,
right.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
So I'm getting rid of all those non-native. The front's been great. I mean, it looks pretty, but there's a lot of things that are just non-native, and it's interesting to see what the bees love. You know, they just go zooming right to the milkweed and other things I've had in there. So
this, I'm precisely doing the same thing after listening to a talk a few sessions ago. So I'm actually converting the lawn, getting rid of the lawn and growing meadow flowers. And you know, I got the seeds from Preseda. So really looking forward to that. But,
I'd be interested. I've been researching that. I just wasn't sure how it would really turn out and what method. So what type of seeds are you using?
Preseda gave me a bunch of, she gave me, let's see.
I think she has more.
Sorry?
I think she has more.
Does.
Oh, I got a ton from her. I also have, she threw in some butterfly weed and she gave me a blend of annuals and perennials, quite a bit. So I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can actually speak to that because I've done that to my backyard. And it doesn't even have to be purposeful. If you just don't mow the flowers that grow, the things that grow, it took me a couple of years, but now I get in the spring, I get a whole field of daisies. The whole backyard becomes a daisy field, and I just let it do their daisy thing. And then it's not quite over to the field, but in about July, then I mow it, and then I let the next thing come up. So it doesn't you don't even have to sow the seed. Sometimes if you just let it be,
Correct.
It kind of takes
Right.
over.
Yeah.
But it's fun to actually sow the seeds because then you can sort of direct more of what you want and you can keep adding to it. I really am excited to follow up with you guys and hear how it's going. I'm doing this too at my house. And I got a little anxious and I threw some zinnia seeds down along with the perennial seeds. It's too soon. I have to calm down. You know, it snowed today while I was buying plants for a client. So
can you see my zinnias growing in the back over there in peat pods? I've got tons of them in the back.
Yeah.
Great. That's great.
It's exciting.
It'd be fun to get some, before and afters from you guys.
Oh, yes,
You
absolutely.
know, we can put them on the website and kind of follow along.
Preseda does a nice job of giving you instructions on how to. I'm actually surprised that Deanne, I mean, you had success without doing much, but Preseda has a method and I'm following that method.
Well, I was following, who was it just saying that? Was it, Deanne, your method. And then I must have gotten some type of horrible grub because it's dead this year, just completely dead, the front of my yard.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. It was doing
you're all inspiring me to be more purposeful about what's happening back there. I'm really so very interesting because I've just sort of done the lazy person's way, but I think I'd like to be more purposeful. Yeah.
Well,
but there's nothing wrong with the lazy person's way.
Well, living on the pond, you really don't want people to use phosphorus and nitrogen, all the fertilizers, as Demetra's talked about. And so I haven't been doing that. And my yard's I've been doing what you've been doing. It's been doing fine, and then, but something happened. Something really bad. So I'll let you know. I'll give you an update in a few weeks. Guys, I had a question for everybody. Have you been looking at pollinators? Have you talked at all about that?
That's exactly what Preseda was talking about. Distributed the pollinators, yeah.
Okay.
Seeds, yeah.
Because I pulled up, I happened to listen to the mass conservation, so the workshops, and they had a Dr. Gagera from Dartmouth was speaking on his research with at-risk pollinators and the recommendation of what to plant. So he really made a great discussion about what's a host plant and what's nectar, what is feeding the plants and what's providing habitat. And
right.
You probably could talk more about that. And I wanted to, if I could share my screen, then I came across, it's on the Lexington Conservation Stewards. They actually have his lecture right there that you can listen to. And it's just really well done, what he's been doing. So it's just very exciting. So that was all this week. And I was glad to see that of his list, I did have some of those plants I actually have in my yard. So that was quite helpful to know.
Can you give the name again, please? What was the name again?
Let me, if I could, can I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. So his name, move this out, let's see. So this is the Lexington, I'll move up to the top here. Can people see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Lexington Nature Series, which they do a great job with, and wonderful speakers. So what they did, this is the fellow that spoke. He looks a little younger here, I have to admit. And he also has on here his list of species. So this one is, let's see, if I get that's a different one. We can pull that one up, but you could see if you want, if you're interested, we could just watch a couple minutes and then you can see a little about him. Here's his list. And what he's done is he's listed the plants by pollen sources and then by nectar sources.
Wow.
And by host plants.
Yeah.
And then by nectar pollen, ones that do both, right? And so going across, you'll have when it's blooming, whether the at-risk bumblebees and the butterflies. And so what you really learn is that there's a lot of bees, like the honeybee is not a native, I didn't realize it's not a native bee. So you don't, if you're rescuing the honeybee, you're rescuing large scale agriculture, right? But it's these at-risk bees that feed on very specific plants. That is what we're losing. And that's what he goes out and he studies all these locations. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's quite
And this is for plants in Massachusetts, I would believe, right?
Yes, this is for Massachusetts plants, right.
Yeah. And that's why the native plants are so important, because those pollinators are natives.
Yep. So he really does it, in the first couple of minutes, you'll learn a lot. He does a very good job of just making you understand what's a host, why you have to think about these differently, what's pollinating and what's hosting your plant.
And can you join the Facebook group and then post this on there so anyone wants can? And Margo, are we allowed to put that on the website?
So you could put a link to the Lexington.
A link, yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know. He'd also, I'm sure he's not for profit. He works for UMass Dartmouth. He'd probably be happy to have it linked on ours, or he could be, so he talked, it looks like he speaks a lot. And then Fred, I wondered, do you know Russ Cohen? I think Shukong, you know him, right? In town here, or Alan knows Russ, right? Over at Right Lock Farm, right? So he's been doing stuff for the Lexington as well. So that was kind of interesting. So I found that Lexington has great website between the conservation and invasive plants and what to do. It's really filled with information. And what we're trying to, we've been looking on conservation in Winchester. We'll be really doing a lot with our website in the next few months and trying to put as much information as Arlington, Concord, and Lexington have been doing, but they're great resources, these other conservation sites.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we do have a website and Facebook. I don't know if people are on Facebook, but we have a forum so you can share links. I'm trying to extend it more. So trying to keep it active between our monthly meetings. If people have any questions, to try to. I know someone had asked a question. It took a week, but we're still a young group. So
I tried to register, but I wasn't successful. So I've been meaning to get back to you on that. And did you find people to be, the experts?
I made people moderators.
Moderators, okay, yeah.
But you know who did is that Matilda saw that people asked questions. So
I'll have to go on now and see.
She's also an editor. Did I make you an editor yet, Matilda?
I
No.
don't think so.
You will graduate this year.
Yeah, I'm too young for this.
So a couple of things. So a friend of mine is moving to Chicago. She and her husband had lived in their house for 30 years and have accumulated a garage full of garden supplies. And this Sunday, I think it's in the chat, 1 to 3 p.m. Sunday. It's a free garage sale. If people are interested, pots and fertilizers and things like that. The more valuable stuff she donated to an auction for the Home and Garden Club, but there's still a lot of other stuff there. And related to trees, I see Liz Scott and it's like Lindy's on there, but I mentioned to them before. The woman professor at the University of British Columbia, she was the one that discovered that trees talk to each other and that trees support each other. And she's putting out a book at the beginning of May called Finding the Mother Tree. Turns out that there are these elder trees in the forest, mother trees, and they support the rest of the forest. They support the young saplings, and they sends them nutrients, and it's an incredible culture. And so she's putting out a book about all this. So if people are interested.
And the trees they're different species too.
Yes.
I mean, I was kind of amazed by that. I saw a film. It's on, if anyone has Netflix, I think I saw it through there.
What was it called?
Not that particular one. It was like I don't know, it's called The Life of Trees or something. If you go into Netflix, I'm sure, especially since it's Earth Week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So there have been other incredible books similar to that, The Hidden Life of Trees and
Hidden Life of Trees. There you go. That's
yeah.
it.
So and a lot of the what's in those books has been based on her work. Oh, and she also has a TED Talk.
Is her name Susan Simard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing, as you see, I like to do videos, everybody. And I would like, as my big project, my personal big project, is to document people in their gardens and how this transformation of different areas of your yard, and it would be nice to, like, once a month just come, whether you're there or not, I see it, but it would be nice to get your response to how you feel about your garden and that kind of thing. So I'm looking for volunteers who would be willing to do that. I would like maybe five of the group. Or I could do, I mean, if everyone wants to do it, that'd be fine, but people are doing container or different types of gardening would be interesting, or different where they are in, if someone like Anne, you're near the pond, I'm looking at, changes, because I live on a pond, that looking at it differently, being on the pond and trying to be natural in there.
I would love to. I did about 5 years ago. I started it's an initiative called the Pond's Front Door. So it is about looking at, trying to understand what does the pond need from the trees and the environment around the pond, and to try to get the homeowners to focus on the fact that they have to put as much energy in, removing invasives and planting natives on the back side of the house as they do on the front side.
And
So I've actually done a lot of work on that, and we've been restoring Little Winter Pond because almost 60% is public, and the town doesn't take care of it. It's incredibly vulnerable to Phragmites and Phragmites. We've got reed canary grass, yellow lilies, and a lot of buckthorn. So we spent about 5 or 6 years in catbrier. We've really made a big indent, but all of those plants could overwhelm the whole ecosystem, especially Phragmites. In almost like a couple of years, the pond would be gone.
so Anne, you would be a good person to be part of this film.
That would be fun. Yeah, we've been trying to.
I look at this
Yeah.
film as just, you know, it doesn't have to be people from Winchester. You
Right.
could be anywhere. So I'm
Yeah.
not, you're not restricted to just
Right.
Winchester residents. I don't know if I could go to Colorado though, Matilda.
Yeah.
You'll have to do your own videos. I'll put.
Yeah, I think I'll have to.
Dion had to leave, but she might be interested. And
And
another,
I know Norman is in the, you know, the community garden. So that's interesting too.
Oh, that'd be great. I have a friend who her grandmother restored a property right up from Wilson Farm, and at the time they did it, they put in redwood trees. Guess what? They're beautiful. You know, they're enormous trees, and they're in kind of a wetland just right up there, about a mile from Wilson's Farm. She'd love to talk about it. It's an amazing garden. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Right. Yeah, really different. A lot of trillium and incredible trees.
wow.
And Ivan is like, he's kind of interesting because he's like a scientist. He right, Ivan?
Oh my God, I've been experimenting on things. Yeah.
So you have a different point. You have an interesting point of view about gardening. And
I do. And I'm trying various things and ideas. And, you know, this is the beauty of a discussion group like this, is I take all these notes and then put them in my garden. And I have so many different ways to translate these ideas. So
but you like,
I love it. I spend all my time outside.
you were telling me that gardening, I don't know, it makes you feel like a peace.
You know, have people watched The Biggest Little Farm?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great
that's
film.
the sort of, right, that's the sort of thing that we're all talking about, right? It's really
Yeah.
increasing biodiversity, improving the soil. And I think that's what's
That's
driving
what
all of us.
that's what we want to be when we grow up.
My kids got me a bumper sticker that says, gardening is better than therapy, and you get tomatoes.
Well, you know,
I love
there's
that.
actually bacteria that is doing that.
That's right.
There is bacteria that makes you feel good when you put your hands in the soil.
It's also that tree bathing thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you go for a long walk in the woods, you're literally, the chemicals of the forest make you, they're healthy. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
And you're getting microbiome. You want to go sit next to some ancient ferns and read a book.
Yeah.
Another little saying that my daughter sent me was, we struggle to keep the grass alive and the dandelions dead.
Right.
Clearly, we've chosen the wrong preferred plant.
So can I bring this to sort of a serious level? Because I just read a note from one of my favorite clients who's in Winchester, and he keeps bees, he and his wife, and they have a completely organic garden with lots and lots of natives and pollinator plants and everything. And his hives died. And, you know, honeybees are not native, but they are vitally important to all of us. If you like honey, and if you like, I mean, they're important, and they do a lot of the pollinating that we need. So he writes a note on Earth Day to all of his neighbors and all of his friends in Winchester. And he says, you know, please add biodiversity to your yard. Please use less lawn, plant more plants. You know, stop with the chemicals that weaken and kill all of these creatures. It's not just honeybees. So maybe in celebration of Earth Day, you write a little note to some friends, you tell them about this group, you know, maybe you attach that yellow sign that some of your neighbors have on their lawn once a month that says it's poison, stay off. And you might invite them to this group, or to just think differently, because it's not, we're all, I think, of a like mind, and it's it's great to talk to each other, but I am evangelical on this, and you can't do that unless you open wider. So
What do people think? I remember in the, maybe a decade ago, they kept on saying think different. I think we should say garden different. And we have,
Yeah, and
I'm
keep in
thinking
mind-
that's a good hashtag, maybe.
And that's why I appreciated the lecture on the pollinators was really an eye opener on, what are we really trying to protect here, and not, and the misunderstanding the bees that are at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
today I had about a dozen bluebirds
wow.
zooming around my yard. And I remembered, when Preseda said, when you take away all of the leaf mold in your yard and you get rid of it all and you kill that whole generation of bugs. So I was thrilled to see those birds, and I'm like, please let it be, because they're eating all the bugs. I don't know, but it's, the more we talk about it to more people, the more we'll change hearts and minds, and we have to, because otherwise we're in big trouble.
Yeah. I've got a tree guy coming to take down some of the dead pieces of the trees that remain and clean out the really high ends of the remaining vines. And Preseda said to me, make sure that they leave some of the dead wood as habitat. And, had you talked to the tree guys about that? And that's just a whole different level of discussion than I ever would have considered. It really does matter.
Oh, I listened to another discussion just about that very thing of restoring your land. And you have to clear the invasives, but you really have to leave a lot of the dead material and fallen trees. And I'd be happy to show some of that some night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important.
If you're lucky enough to have a large property where you can do that,
I know.
Absolutely, you should do
Right.
that. Like
And
leaving
let's-
snags so you can have pets move in. It's thrilling to be able to watch it.
Right. I had a wonderful snag for woodpeckers, and it snapped at Hurricane Sandy. So it was a massive 80-foot oak tree, but the snag was maybe maybe 20 feet tall. And so when was that? Hurricane Sandy probably was at least 7 or 8 years ago now, right? And it just fell down this winter. So,
Oh yeah.
Ian, I have a question for you. I see a mammal swimming in the pond.
oh, right. That's muskrat.
Muskrat, okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was a beaver or something.
You have to come to my house to see the beaver.
Yeah.
I was down by McClelland Park, which is at the site of a former landfill in Arlington Heights, and there's a stream along there. There is a sort of several pool areas, and a Boy Scout troop has done a project of these sort of floating islands. Have anybody heard of this?
Yep.
With native plants from Native Plant Trust that are supposedly going to, make good use of all the duck poop and goose poop and nutrient runoff, et cetera, and get going. But I went down there yesterday to photograph it, and there were 9 turtles, all aligned, two species, all aligned, enjoying the sun. Not sure how good it was for the plants.
Well,
Where is this pond?
It was, it's off Reed Street, just off Summer Street in Arlington, Arlington Heights area,
Yeah. Okay.
just down the hill from Winchester. And it's just amazing. I don't know that much about the idea of it, but I'll send some pictures to somebody in the group so they can be.
Yeah.
I heard the
We'll put
turtles
it
go down 9 to 10 feet when they're waiting for their season to come back.
Yeah,
That's neat.
yeah.
That's very neat.
Yeah.
And I'd like to also underscore the importance of the microbiome and all this biodiversity and all of the keep yourself healthy so you don't need the chemicals. I'm thinking pharmaceuticals. That's another vision that we have going here.
Okay, so we're way past 8:30. it's time to say goodnight.
Could I give you one more thing as an inspiring closing? I put the link on the share site and I can share my screen again. I won't do the whole thing, but if a friend of mine passed on a link for Earth Day today, and oops, now I lost it. Shoot, how do I do this? And it was really, really quite amazing. And it's a requiem to the the species that have gone extinct.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't find how I did with that. Sorry. So I may not find it. So I put the link in there. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay. So listen to, so you can read about it. There's 12 species that have gone extinct in this year.
This is incredibly depressing.
No, that's why I said it's very
I can't. I'm gonna
I was gonna say
good night, everybody. I love y'all, but I can't do it.
to offset that, I posted in the chat Pollinator Pathway website. And actually with the Kiss the Ground course, I have, there's 5 of us from New Jersey all the way up to Vermont that like this woman in Greenwich, Connecticut, she's doing an incredible job with all her whole town. She's educating them for the pollinator pathways. And it's, you just need little patches in your yard. Anyways, it's very inspiring what they're doing.
And I'm new to the group, but I'm also with the Mystic River Watershed Association. And I think one of the connections that I've made tonight is the healthier the soils and the healthier we are with our yards, the better it is for water quality. And I do have to say that the herring are going to start running. And the herring run in the Mystic River has increased by 4-fold since we've started getting the herring around the different dams that are on the Mystic River and the Aberjona. So I think that that's a great success story that's right here in our backyards, and all of you who are contributing by keeping your yards healthy are contributing to the improved water quality that's helping the fish.
I want to say that your group is doing amazing things, and I've watched you grow and do more and more in the area, and to Chelsea, to wherever, and it's pretty amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
So if I don't, Tracy, I don't know how you got our link, but if you're interested to be on our mailing list for future episodes, send us your email.
Maybe
Thanks. I'm actually on the mailing list.
Oh, okay.
It was really great to attend tonight.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Maybe you could speak too about the area in general, too. The rivers and I don't know if everyone knows everything. So, the water goes right through Winchester to Wakefield and Stoneham and everywhere. So it's very important.
Yeah.
I put a link to the Charles River floating islands. I think that was Donna that mentioned she had seen them, and so they're doing an amazing study of floating islands. That was just
everybody knows how to save the chat.
No, how do you do that, Fred?
You go to chat, and there on the bottom right corner, there's the 3 dots.
You say save chat. You have to say where.
I've been copying and pasting, and it's a simple way to do it.
Yeah. Just save it to your computer.
Say save chat, and yeah, it'll save it on your computer.
Right.
Is it doing it? No.
Great tip. Thanks.
Okay, and if anybody is interested in having a little breakout session about growing stuff in their yards, let us know and we'll figure out a schedule.
Or if you want to come build some raised beds. We had a fun time.
You should, if we have everyone's email, maybe when we do that, we can send it out when you're going to do it, because it's probably based on Fred.
I think it should be based on Fred.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Fred.
Meeting
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.